The city of cars, once the proud jewel of the East, now lay suffocated under a blanket of occupation. 3 years of grinding siege and subsequent rule had reduced its vibrant streets to a maze of barbed wire and silent desperation. The only sound that defied the curfew was the incessant, ominous clang of the main cathedral bell, which the occupying forces now used to mark their grim patrol shifts. In the shadows of the old city, below a collapsed bakery whose sign, Bread and Hope, was now a cruel joke, existed Jadwiga. Not the daughter of a baker, but the last apprentice of the city's master clockmaker, whose lineage had maintained the cathedral's famous mechanism for 3 centuries. Her sanctuary was the humid, cramped space beneath the shop's brick oven. It was rank with the smell of stale yeast and the bitter, metallic tang of industrial lubricant. For a full month, Jadwiga had lived like a trapped insect, subsisting on water filtered through the broken kill pipes and a meager hoard of dried figs and stolen clock gears. She was not praying for survival. She was waiting for a chance. The bell's clang was not a symbol of oppression to her, but a signal, a timepiece waiting for its final, fatal adjustment. Then, one wet, freezing dusk, the silence broke. The heavy thud of tracked vehicles vibrated through the foundation. Not the usual patrol, but a large, mud-caked regimental HQ detachment pulling into the abandoned square. They chose the bakery the most, structurally sound ruin as their temporary command post. The air soon filled with the stench of cheap tobacco, cooking fat, and the loud, arrogant laughter of officers. Jadwiga pressed her ear to the damp earth, hearing boots stamping just inches above her head. Their guttural foreign language was an oily stream of noise. She recognized the sounds of furniture being smashed and tables being set up. They had arrived. A wave of crushing despair washed over her, but it quickly solidified into glacial resolve. They were close. Too close. The disaster struck just after midnight. A sergeant, searching for a place to toss spoiled rations, kicked over the loose trapdoor camouflaging her hiding place. A single shaft of light, thick with dust motes, speared the darkness. "Look, a sewer rat," he sneered in the conqueror's tongue. They dragged her out. Jadwiga blinked, her eyes adjusting to the lamplight reflecting off the wet cobblestones. Before her stood 7 men, a mix of field officers and grunts, all hardened by the Eastern Front. Their faces were heavy with exhaustion, hunger, and a predatory boredom. What happened next was a blur of crushing despair and sickening violation. Her body became a trophy, a momentary release from the discipline of war. She was taken to the bell tower guard post, the highest room in the square, where the wind whistled through the shattered arrow slits. She did not resist with her body. Instead, her mind mapped the room, the location of the rifle rack, the officers' discarded holsters, and the heavy cast-iron wrench, carelessly left beside the maintenance access panel, for the bell mechanism. She endured the horror, her only focus the cold, precise knowledge of the clockwork that governed their hours. In the deep pre-dawn, as the exhausted officers slept in a drunken stupor, their snores competing with the winter wind, Jadwiga moved. Her torn clothing offered no comfort against the freezing stone. Pain was a distant secondary concern. Her soul was already consumed by a cold, burning focus. She crawled, not toward escape, but toward the central sprocket and chain mechanism of the great bell. Light as a feather, she secured the cast-iron wrench. She did not need to run. Her revenge was already built into the tower. She knew the clock better than her own heartbeat. It was a machine of precision, and a machine of precision, when properly disrupted, becomes a machine of spectacular destruction. Working in silence, she removed the heavy counterweight latchpin. The enormous, 2-ton lead weight that powered the hourly chime now hung precariously, held only by a worn leather strap she had previously lubricated with rancid machine oil. She then used the wrench to sever the bell rope entirely, ensuring no one could give a manual alarm. Her final act was the worst, the most meticulous. She returned to the sleeping men. Gently she gathered their abandoned rifles, pistols, and the heavy leather satchels of ammunition they used for the Chivsto HQ. She arranged all the weaponry around the bell towers, main drive shaft, and then positioned a kerosene lamp to ensure that once the mechanism moved, it would guarantee ignition. The moment came at 5 a.m., the hour of the changing of the guard. The massive gears began to turn, and the final strap holding the counterweight snapped. The 2-ton lead mass dropped like a cannonball, hitting the gear-driven mechanism, causing a catastrophic, deafening explosion of gears and steel. The impact was so severe it brought down the entire support structure of the room, turning the bell tower into a funnel of crashing stone and grinding metal. The ammunition cooked off instantly. The sound of exploding rounds mixed with the terrifying shriek of men being crushed, and the final, hideous clang of the ruined bell hitting the ground below. Jadwiga was already outside, using the ancient hidden maintenance stairwell. She stood in the square, watching the tower collapse in a plume of white smoke and dust. She felt nothing, no joy, no sorrow, only the calm vacuum left by a completed task. She walked away into the heavy morning fog. Her small ruined figure, the master clockmaker of revenge, disappeared into the pale winter dawn of cars, leaving behind only the cold silence of a broken clock.